Recognize the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, for 5 minutes of questions.
Madam Secretary, how many United States military veterans have you deported?
Sir, we have not deported U.S. citizens or military veterans.
I don't believe you served in the military. I haven't either, but I think you and I can agree that as Americans, we owe everything to those who have served our country in uniform, particularly those who have served in combat. Do you agree with that?
Sir, I believe that people that are in this United States that are citizens have legal status here.
Madam Secretary, we are joined on Zoom by a gentleman named Se-Jun Park. He is a United States Army combat veteran who was shot twice while serving our country in Panama in 1989. Like many veterans, he struggled with PTSD and substance abuse after his service. He was arrested in the 1990s for some minor drug offenses, nothing serious. He never hurt anyone besides himself, and he's been clean and sober for 14 years. He is a combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient. He has sacrificed more for this country than most people ever have. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Will you join me in thanking Mr. Park for his service to our country?
Sir, I'm grateful for every single person that has served our country and follows our laws.
Can you please tell Mr. Park why you deported him?
Every one of them needs to be enforced.
You guys, you notice something here, something that really stands out to me when it comes to hearing Kristi Noem with these answers is that, Kristi Noem knew about this hearing. She had to know which questions were likely to be asked. She must have prepared for them, meaning this is the best she could come up with, perjury. Imagine preparing for a hearing before Congress under oath, and the best that you can come up with is literally perjury. Oh man, what a disaster. So how can she even defend this? Saying that she didn't know, or maybe saying that it wasn't she wasn't aware of the decision to deport veterans? Regardless of how she chooses to manage this, obviously the hearing is done, but I mean, moving forward, there is no recovering from this mess. There is no coming back from lying under oath before Congress, which is a criminal offense. And yes, she may get a full pardon from Donald Trump if she was actually lying. If it's, proven that she was lying, that she knew, she will get a full pardon from Trump. And very likely before he leaves office, he'll take care of that if he ever leaves office, because once the administration changes, and everything points that to the fact that it will change, according to the November elections and what we just saw in Miami-Dade, she could face these criminal charges. But regardless, the damage is already done. But let's continue listening now to the clip.
But you understand that many veterans struggle with PTSD, many veterans struggle with substance abuse challenges. This man took 2 bullets for our country. You have broad authority.
That's a really good point too, because Kristi Noem knows, she says, well, every person in this country must follow the law, and that's why, he's telling her he's a veteran. He took 2 bullets for our country. He's a Purple Heart, recipient, and all these things, all these awards, and he just was found. Apparently, I don't know. I think he mentioned some marijuana or something like that for personal use, which was apparently he was arrested for it or something. But he has been sober for 14 years and all these things, and that's pretty much nothing. Then you compare that to Donald Trump's 34, felony counts, or you compare that to the classified documents case and to the insurrection and to the fraud case with Stormy Daniels, the campaign finance violation, and then the New York bank and insurance fraud, and then, Trump University fraud, and what else? Trump charity fraud and sexual abuse and all these things. And Trump was worthy of, going back to the White House. But then a U.S. veteran, just because at, 15, 20 years ago he was arrested, or whatever the time it was, this long ass time, long time ago. And these are criminals. We have to take them out because they have supposedly a criminal record. I think, let me see, I may have a graphic here. Here it is. Look at this. The New York Times just posted this. ICE arrest data shows many immigrants with no criminal record. In high-profile operations, more than half of those arrested had no criminal record, as analysis shows. And you can see there in Los Angeles, violent with conviction, only 6%, no criminal charges, 57%. Illinois, 3% with violent ones, no criminal charges, 66%. Washington, D.C., 2% with violent conviction, 84% look at that, 84 in Washington, D.C., 84% no criminal charges. Massachusetts, 2% with violent convictions, and 63% with no criminal charges. So obviously this has been targeted, more targeted to just go after people with brown, brown skin, pretty much. That's the reality. Unfortunately, this is more based on racism than anything else, because then they're talking about the drugs. Yeah, we want to stop the drugs. This is why we're killing people in the Caribbean. But at the same time, Donald Trump is just pardoning the Honduras ex-president Juan Orlando Hernandez, who trafficked 500, according to some reports, 400, according to the New York Times and others, 500 tons. Either way, that's a shit ton of cocaine into the USA. And if you guys are not aware, and just for graphical, purpose, for the sake of graphical, let's say, understanding, imagine, and I Google, kind of like the tons, and compare that to elephants. That's the equivalent of a freaking line of 76, between 76 and 80 elephants, full-size grown adult elephants. Imagine a freaking line of 76 to 80 elephants. That's the amount of cocaine that Juan Orlando Hernandez, the Honduras ex-president, trafficked into the USA, and he made millions of dollars. And Donald Trump just decided to pardon the guy because it was convenient politically. And then Republicans are going around on the media tour, telling the media, well, we're trying to fix relationships with Central and South America. So, the president understood that by pardoning this guy, it's going to allow us to improve our relationships. Yeah, the guy who sent 500 tons of cocaine into the USA, the same as the CC, the Binance founder, that guy allowed financing of terrorism, human trafficking, infant sexual exploitation, and drug trafficking too. All that financing, money laundering and financing for those types of crimes were happening on his platform. The guy was making billions of dollars. He donated or invested or donated $2 billion to the Trump, family business, the crypto business, and all of a sudden, he got a pardon too. Yeah, but we're definitely trying to stop drugs from, coming into the USA. We want to stop the cartels, and we want to kill all these drug traffickers because we don't want to see Americans dying. We don't want to see Americans dying at all because of drugs, unless we're talking about Juan Orlando Hernandez drugs, that cocaine, that was okay, or unless we're talking about healthcare, taking Medicaid away or taking the ACA subsidies away, which has been already established. There's the new study saying that 50,000 people are going to die every single year. 50,000. And oh yeah, if it's related to healthcare, we don't care about American lives. Yeah, we don't care about, cancer funding that we're taking away from different colleges or institutions or research companies or centers or organizations, whatever it is. They're taking money away from people that need it, from those who are hard workers or those who are sick, and that's gonna lead to that. We know that, but yeah, it's this man, such a hypocrisy. This whole cherry picking thing, the narrative. Yeah, we're pro-life and we want to stop drugs unless it's not convenient, and we want to pardon somebody. And then Republicans, instead of just being honest and saying, you know what, I didn't like that pardon. I'll be honest. I'm a progressive. No wonder, right? I'm a progressive. But I criticize Joe Biden for his pardons. The only pardon that I can say, I'm not in favor of, but I understand it, is when he pardoned Hunter Biden. I said it was 50-50 on my end. Why 50-50? Because I believe he's sending a wrong message. If you're my family, a family member, I'm going to save you. Even if you break the law, I'm going to save you. I thought that was the wrong message. And I said it, and I criticized it on my own podcast in Spanish. I have a Spanish podcast. It's called Aranzamendi Podcast Español, which is my main podcast, and it's doing really good, and it's growing a lot. And I also helped Brian Tyler Cohen with his Spanish channel, too. I've been working with Brian Tyler Cohen for 3 years now, handling the Spanish podcast. But anyway, so I said it on my Spanish podcast. I didn't like this pardon, but at least I can understand. He's not pardoning. Biden wasn't pardoning some freaking drug trafficker from Honduras who brought 500 tons of cocaine into the USA. Or he wasn't pardoning the founder of Binance who was allowing financing to happen, money laundering for human trafficking and child sexual exploitation and for drugs and even terrorism. And then they want to label everybody domestically here. Oh, these are terrorists. Oh, Antifa, terrorist organization. Oh, the Democrats, terrorists. Yeah, but then when you have the founder of Binance actually helping terrorists, Donald Trump says, you know what? Some people told me, I don't know him personally, but a lot of people told me that he's a great guy, so I think I made a lot of people happy because, they even told me that what he does. Donald Trump said this, man. Donald Trump said this. He's so shameful, man. Sounds even treasonous. But he said, man, it's just crazy. He said, they told me, in trying to save his ass because he was being questioned by a reporter. Why? I think this was during the 60 Minutes interview. Go and find it. The Binance pardon, what he was confronted during the 60-minute interview. And she asked him, why do you give him a pardon? This guy helped to finance all these crimes and to launder the money, and he knew it. And Donald Trump said, well, they told me he was a good guy. A lot of people said that he was treated unfairly by the Biden administration. And a lot of people told me that, this is the crazy part. A lot of people told me that he wasn't, the things that he did weren't even that bad. Really? The U.S. President Donald Trump, well, I guess Donald Trump was referring to, well, if you put his criminal curriculum, how you call it, resume, but his whole criminal record next to mine, of course, whatever he did, it seems, to amount to nothing, almost nothing. But he literally told, this lady from the 60-minute host for that interview, he told them, well, some people told me that the things that he did, CC, they call him CC, I think his name is like Champing Chow, something like that. I can't even pronounce this. Weird. Champing Chow. But anyway, they call him CC. So CC, he committed all these crimes. And Donald Trump believes that, well, some people tell me wasn't even that bad. So he didn't know who he pardoned. He said, oh, I didn't know him. I really don't know the guy. I just went by, what people told me. And then he wants to accuse Biden of abusing the pardon, right or power, the pardon power, because it was supposedly signed with AutoPen, or maybe he wasn't even aware what was going on when they confront him. And he says, well, I don't know the guy. I don't know about the crimes. They tell me he was treated unfairly. This is the U.S. president, the commander-in-chief, who's supposed to help enforce the laws, and he loves enforcing the laws. Look at how he's trying to politically and vindictively right now accuse and indict and process and jail Letitia James and James Comey and John Bolton and Adam Shifty Schiff, like he will call him, and so on. It's just ridiculous. But it's absolutely, ridiculous, absurd, and shameful. And shame on all of you who support Donald Trump, like pardoning all these criminals and then turning around and saying, yeah, we're against drugs. We want to go into Venezuela. We're putting troops on the ground very soon because we're going to stop the cartels. Yeah, of course you will. Of course you care about drugs. Yeah, we're absolutely 100% so Donald Trump because, wherever you put the eye, you put the bullet, man. Like wherever you put your word, you put the action behind it, and you're always consistent with the things that you're saying. Oh, Lord, man, it's an absolute circus.
Authority, by the way, as secretary, to issue humanitarian parole, to do deferred action. Will you commit to at least looking at Mr. Park's case to see if you can help him find a pathway back to this country that he sacrificed so much for?
I will absolutely look at his case, but I want you
Thank
to
you.
remember that
Madam
our
Secretary, the
programs
man
need to have
behind
integrity
you,
as
please
well.
stand up, sir. His name is Jim Brown from Troy, Missouri. He is a Navy combat veteran who served our country in the Gulf War. He's married to a woman named Donna, who came to our country legally from Ireland when she was 11 years old. She has lived here for 48 years. Because of you, Jim's wife Donna has been in prison for the last 4 months. She did not come here illegally, and she has never committed any crime other than writing 2 bad checks totaling $80 10 years ago. She is currently in prison and facing deportation. Ms. Noem, will you thank Mr. Brown for his service to our country?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your service to our country.
Now, what possible explanation can there be for locking up his wife for 4 months when she has committed no crime other than writing a couple of bad checks for $80?
Sir, it is not my prerogative, my latitude, or my job to pick and choose which laws in this country get enforced.
You have
and
broad
which ones
discretion
don't.
as the secretary.
We need to follow
You can issue
the law
parole. You
and
can do all
enforce
kinds of
the
things,
laws.
but you're choosing not to. Will you commit again to just reviewing Donna's case?
That's also bullshit. What she just said there. It's not my place to determine what laws people must follow. Like in other words, I'm a rule of law person, right? Unless it's about, it has to do with deporting Abrego Garcia and all these Venezuelans who were illegally deported, like denying them due process. And then the Supreme Court had to rule 9-0 saying like, yeah, you can invoke the Alien Enemies Act all you want. That still doesn't go above the Constitution. And the Constitution, remember, it's a supremacy clause. The supremacy clause establishes that you have first a Constitution, then federal law, and then state law. You cannot take any law from the 1800s, 1900s, or even a new law that Republicans may pass right now and try to like just trump the Constitution, just go over it and ignore the Constitution because you're citing some old ass law which has rarely or barely been invoked over time. So you can see how they have lied to the courts, they have challenged the courts, they have choose which laws and orders they want to follow coming from the courts based on the Constitution and the law and the things that they must follow. And they just don't do it. They don't do it. If it doesn't suit the narrative, if it's not according to what they want to push or what Donald Trump wants, then they just don't follow the law. So it's just absolute bullshit that she says, well, I don't get to choose which laws to follow. Then stop denying due process to people. Because every single court has told you time and time again that you can't just disappear people. Stop abusing people on the streets. Stop disappearing people without even giving them a single phone call. Some people are going for days without being able to call family members. And some of them are sick. They haven't been able to get their medications. There was this guy that I just read about that had this super bad kidney condition, an old person, senior citizen, with a really bad situation, and they forced him. They were not taking him to the hospital to get. He was literally probably hours away from dying, and they told him the only way they were gonna take him to the hospital was if he signed. Apparently, he had to sign like this self-deportation or to plead guilty to something. I don't remember the details. I'm kind of like right now going off the top of my head, but they forced him to sign some documents before he could even get help, before he could even fix his legal situation. Just literally conditioned. That's blackmailing a person. Like the guy's about to die. He knows that he doesn't get dialysis in a couple of hours. Probably he's gonna die. And they're like, well, tough luck. If you don't sign this document, we're not taking you. I'm telling you, these people, they really should get lawyers because they're feeling like so full of themselves right now. They think that the wheel is not gonna go round. It's not gonna go around, and they're not gonna go under at some point. This is how the politics cycle works. Republicans will be on top for some time, and then the Democrats, and they'll either government will drop the ball, people will get tired, and will change them. And once they change them, then accountability will follow. So maybe they're just emboldened and empowered by the fact that Donald Trump right now is like abusing the pardon power. Like in such a criminal and corrupt way. Like, I don't know if you saw the stats. This has been all over the social media, like the internet and the media in the past, week or so. Biden gave, I think it was 80 pardons. Yeah, around 80 pardons in 4 years. That's what he did, 80. Donald Trump is already in 10 months over 1,500. How the hell can that be? Over 50, well, of course, 1,500 alone was just, like the insurrectionists. But then on top of that, he has a lot more. And the kind of people that he is pardoning, like, is completely corrupt and unbelievable. Unbelievable that people would just, go for that and support him and still try to go online and somehow defend that. Ridiculous.
And reuniting this combat veteran with his beloved wife, who also loves this country.
I will review the case.
Now, Madam Secretary, you've already heard the story of Lance Corporal Alejandro Barranco, the United States Marine veteran who is behind you, who also has 2 brothers who are United States Marines. Will you thank Lance Corporal Barranco for his service?
Thank you for your service.
His father, Narcisco Barranco, is a landscaper in California who has lived peacefully in our country for 30 years and has no criminal record. Last spring, while he was mowing the lawn at an IHOP, ICE agents tackled him in the street and imprisoned him for weeks. A peaceful, hard-working man who raised 3 sons to be United States Marines. We need men of that character in this country. Again, as Secretary, you have broad discretion. Will you consider Lance Corporal Barranco's father for parole in place to stay in our country, owing to the fact that he has contributed to our country by raising 3 United States Marines?
This is an opportunity to remind everybody that every person that's in this country illegally has an opportunity to voluntarily go home and come back the right way.
He raised 3 United States Marines.
We will facilitate that.
He has been living here peacefully, doing his job for 30 years. You have discretion. You are choosing not to use it. Madam Secretary, you promised America that you would go after the worst of the worst. But these people are not the worst of the worst. A Purple Heart recipient, a military spouse, the father of 3 Marines. And it's not just veterans and military families. You are locking up and deporting children with cancer, mothers with babies in the NICU, United States citizens. There are many problems with your leadership, but the biggest problem is this. You don't seem to know how to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. Go after the bad guys. Go after the terrorists. Do not go after veterans, Marines, children,
Gentleman's
United
time's
States
expired.
citizens. I yield back.
Well, there you go. So that's definitely, this is a huge problem for Kristi Noem, guys. So let me say this, regardless of whatever Kristi Noem chooses to do, if she tries to say that, she wasn't lying, she was just trying to be honest because she wasn't aware of any deportations, then who's running the show, right? And then if she admits that she knew, of course, then she has a problem because then she did commit perjury. So Kristi Noem right now is in the same position as Pete Hegseth with the Caribbean, attacks, these boat, attacks, and all those pretty much, the killings, illegal killings, Pete Hegseth is claiming he didn't know. And as I said in a different podcast, a different episode, they think that's a good excuse because it covers their asses, right? I didn't know, that was the general, that was the admiral, that was the commander, Bradley. I gave him full authority to do whatever he thought it was best. And, I was just watching live, but then after the first blast, I had to go into, my next meeting. So he had full control and I didn't know, right? What they forget is that even if you say it was not your call, that means that the military, it's running on its own. That you're allowing the chain of command to make decisions that are not based on pre-planning and following your orders as Secretary of War or even as Commander-in-Chief. Trump said he would have preferred not to have a second strike. So that means that Pete Hegseth is running the show not aware of the Commander-in-Chief's combat preferences. But as a leader, you take responsibility. As a leader, you have to own it. And you don't, if you don't, that means that you're not leading and somebody else is running the show for you. So it's kind of like a lose situation. Like he thinks by saying, well, it wasn't my decision, it wasn't my call. Well, that means that you are not discussing with the chain of command. You're not discussing, hey, this is plan A, this is plan B, this is plan C, and in the worst case scenario, this is plan D. We're never getting to plan E. I'm not authorizing plan E, which would be killing survivors. Never. We never go here. So once you set your priorities and your tone in a very clear manner, professional, as somebody with experience would do, which Pete Hegseth doesn't have, then plan B or plan C wouldn't happen unless you had pre-approved in your pre-planning of a combat mission. Because tell me that Pete Hegseth is not sitting with all these generals and admirals and people, high officials in the chain of command, and they're not discussing the plan B, plan C, worst case scenario, what we do, if there's survivors. You're going to tell me that wasn't discussed in the rest before and that Pete Hegseth gave some form of order authorizing or banning it? I'm just waiting. It's not going to happen probably immediately, but they're going to have to face at some point accountability. and they're going to have to answer tough questions because they think the country is stupid. And I know there's always some extreme, fanatical Trump lackeys that will just swallow anything whole without questioning. But even Republicans, that's why you have even Republicans questioning and saying, even the judge, I played for you guys, Judge Napolitano, a career Republican. He's Fox's main principal. He's like the main judge. When it comes to legal stuff, this guy is always on Fox. And he went on a different conservative network, and he said this was, completely unacceptable. This is a crime of war. I think I have that video here for you. Let me play, if I have this video here, if I can see it, I can play it for you. Oh man, I do have it, but I have it on a different episode template. So anyway, look for it. Maybe you saw it. It went viral. Judge Napolitano saying there is no way that you can excuse the second blast. That was 41 minutes later. These people were waving for 41 minutes, waving the drone or whatever, the plane, whatever they had out there. They had no radio. The video shows they had no radio. They had no guns. They had no nothing there to say, well, maybe they were waving to another boat in the distance to come and save them. Yeah, like you have the drones, you're ready to attack. You had more ammo to attack them, and you couldn't attack. They couldn't even find the bigger boat. They said that this little small boat wasn't even coming to the United States. It was going to meet somewhere around the Caribbean. It was going to meet some other bigger boat. So they decided to just destroy the little boat. I just saw a meme on Facebook saying oh yeah, they literally just seized one of these tankers, oil tankers in close to Venezuela, the waters in the Caribbean too, and that's a huge ass tank, and you can see the helicopter, and you can see our servicemen just jumping on board and taking control. And a lot of people are saying that you could take that one, just seize that one without killing anybody, without killing survivors. And then the one that had only 11 people, this little boat, you couldn't deal with that one without having to kill these people and then killing survivors. It's just ridiculous. But all I'm saying is that it's a lose situation. That's not an acceptable excuse. Saying I didn't give the order and I didn't know, actually, it's equally as bad because it means you're not doing your job. If you're a commander-in-chief or if you're the Secretary of War, you're supposed to be in control and you're supposed to call the shots. You're the shot caller. That's why, the hottest guy around, right? In the Pentagon right now, you're the baddest MF. That's you. Unless something goes wrong, because then you're not going to own it. You're going to say, well, I didn't know. I had just, left. I went into my next meeting. Such a, stupid thing to say, right? But anyway, let me know what you think is going to happen. Do you think Kristi Noem will be fired? There are reports saying that Trump wants to get rid of her. Not only of her, apparently and allegedly, Donald Trump is really disappointed right now with Pete Hegseth too, which, he has done an awful job. He shared battle plans on Signal, twice, not only with his with this journalist who was in the group by mistake. He also sent the battle plans for the Houthi attack. He sent it to his brother, he sent it to his wife, and even to his personal lawyer. And then apparently, according to reports, he also had a laptop which was not approved in the Pentagon with a separate internet service that was not vetted, was not approved. Why? Because he wanted to have Signal, allegedly, he wanted to have Signal also installed on his personal computer. And you know why they're doing that, right? What many experts and analysts are saying right now is that they do that because there is the Freedom of Information Act, which is, for short, is called FOIA, the FOIA Act. And based on the FOIA Act, they can order the Pentagon or, any agency, government agency, or even branch, they can order through the courts, get a court order so that you have to release all documentations, emails, all the records that are normally kept by law, and there's standards, there's procedure to keep all these records, right? And preserve conversations, approvals, consultations, whatever it is, there's a record of it. But if you have all your conversations on a private third-party app, which destroys most of the message, everything is encrypted, it doesn't go through the government, then nothing is on record. You can sue all you want based on the FOIA Act, and none of that is gonna pop. So you can see that part there, and that's why Pete Hegseth right now is also on the chopping block, and they said also he wants to replace Kash Patel. There's an FBI guy that apparently happens to be like a career person who has a lot of experience, and apparently Trump and other people like him, and they're saying that Trump wants to get rid of Kash Patel too. Who would have thought that he was going to get tired of Kash Patel dropping the ball? Even Trump did it today. Kash Patel, remember when they killed Charlie Kirk, he said, "Oh, we have the suspect, we have the shooter. He's in custody." And then he had to say, "Oh, my bad, that wasn't him. Now we have the real suspect or the real shooter. Now we have him in custody." Which they say just because he made that stupid mistake, just because he went online and he wanted to brag quickly. When you have an ongoing investigation, you don't want to make all these statements publicly. Like, you want to be careful, but he went out there and he said that they already had the suspect, the shooter in custody. And this is something that now the defense of the shooter is going to use. Whenever he goes to trial, his lawyers are going to say, well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, hear this out. Check this out. This guy is now accusing my client. An hour before, 2 hours before, 5 hours before, he had posted online that they already had the real shooter. They had the actual shooter. They knew it was him, and he posted it. He posted that information on his Twitter account. And being the FBI director, you think this guy would make that up and post it on social media? Or, do you think he would be very sure, very convinced that he had the right person? Because if you're going to make that kind of statement publicly, you better be right? We don't want to think of the FBI director as somebody who is incompetent, who would just post random information without confirming it, right? You would think that being the FBI director, he did confirm that information, so he had the shooter. Why they let him go, and why are they now trying to accuse my client? Even though there may be tons of evidence incriminating this guy apparently confessed. And his dad turned him in, and his pastor apparently was there. And, there was a text thread, and the friend who was getting the text messages, he received some messages about where the gun, he had dropped the gun, and apparently that's how they found the gun or the rifle or whatever it was. So there's a lot of evidence against this new guy, the real shooter, right? But remember, you just need sometimes one jury member to not feel fully convinced. And that law has loopholes and there are a lot of technicalities, and lawyers can be very clever sometimes. And unless you have very solid proof, it's easy for, a criminal to somehow get away. I know a guy, he was such a criminal, and he made it all the way up to the White House after being ruled, a convicted felon. And he made it all the way to the White House. Maybe you guys know who I'm talking about, right? So you can see how he has been dropping the ball, Kash Patel, with all these cases and a bunch of other stuff. And apparently internally he has a lot of turmoil and problems going on, because they say that he's just unprepared, guys. Imagine this happens. This happens all the time in retail. It happens everywhere, every organization. Sometimes you see how they promote the most unqualified motherfucker just because he is, an ass kisser. Just because he's close to the manager or close to the district manager or close to, some other higher person. And they get promoted, and this guy never worked. This guy doesn't have experience. This guy doesn't know how to do shit. But they still promoted him. And you know how that makes everyone around that person feel. It works. People get promoted like that all the time without merit. But, this is brought to you by the meritocracy administration, right? But still, that's what's going on with Kash Patel. A lot of people are really mad because he happens to also be an asshole, and he would be criticizing, prior FBI directors and other people for using private planes, and now apparently he's just, burning money, using private planes to go around, flying his singer girlfriend, apparently she's a country singer or something. So it's just everything falls apart for them. So that's why Donald Trump seems to be mad about Kristi Noem and about Kash Patel and about Pete Hegseth, thinking that they're not doing a good job. And I'm like, yeah, like you're doing a good job yourself, right? But anyway, apparently he thinks that he doesn't need more help making things worse than they already are with his own corruption. But anyway, apparently he wants to get rid of Kristi Noem, because allegedly she has not been, this is that part, they want to get rid of Kristi Noem, not because she has been like bad in the sense that she's not able to do her job. They just want her to be, she hasn't been mean enough or aggressive or abusive enough. Imagine that. They want to get rid of her because they want somebody who is meaner, who is more aggressive. I don't think she'll face accountability right away, other than maybe eventually being fired or maybe transferred to a different agency or somewhere else, because Trump cares more about keeping his loyal leaders in power, because the optics matter way more than the rule of law. Do you think he's just going to fire 3 of his candidates, his agency secretaries or directors? He's not going to do that, because we told them, everybody told them from the very beginning, who would have thought that Pete Hegseth was not a right fit? Bro, everybody told you Pete Hegseth was unqualified, 100%. The same with Kash Patel and, all these people. Tulsi Gabbard. Well, some people say that Tulsi Gabbard may have some qualifications. I have a friend who tells me, she has some qualifications still, based on her background and ties to, foreign governments and all the things that, she has on her resume. She wouldn't have passed in a normal world. She wouldn't have passed confirmation. Trump even, man, this is so crazy. Trump even wanted to name Matt Gaetz, the guy who is accused right now, well, at least of being investigated, and based on the Congress' own investigation, they found that there was credible evidence that he was having sex relationships with or just having sex. Let me say it this way. Sorry, sometimes I have to think in Spanish and the things come out the wrong way. But anyway, supposedly he had sex with a minor. Supposedly he also had drugs. They use drugs with with a minor. So anyway, this guy is awful. This guy should be thinking about focusing on the criminal defense, because at some point, maybe not now, because I don't see Van Bondi maybe taking care of that, but at some point he may face some accountability. And the thing is that Donald Trump said, you know what, this guy did just quit Congress because this whole thing was about to explode. They were going to publish a report. I think this is my guy. He should be even before Van Bondi, he wanted Matt Gaetz. That tells you everything you need to know about the kind of people that Donald Trump was trying to find and why, because he needed. Look at all the things that he's doing right now. And now there's nobody. Well, I'm not going to say nobody, because we just saw 21 Republicans literally slap him in the face and tell him, we're not doing your bidding. We're not doing the gerrymandering in Indiana. You guys know about that? 21 Republicans that were initially planning on approving the gerrymandered messages. Donald Trump pressed them so badly, and the White House pressed them so badly, that they said, you know what? We're not doing this. We're not doing this because at the end of the day, we're an independent state and we're sovereign, and you guys should, respect that, yes, you're the federal government, but we are the state authority, and you're not going to tell us how to run things in our state. They actually finally just, snapped. And I'm so happy about that, because we've seen maybe just a handful of Republicans snap in Congress, but not many of them. Most of them don't have a spine. They don't have the balls. They're always afraid. But these 21 people, 21 Republicans in Indiana, they join Democrats and they vote against Donald Trump's gerrymandering. So now Indiana is not happening for them. And they were planning on taking 2 seats away in the House of Representatives for 2026, taking the 2 only seats that Democrats have in Indiana. And now Republicans finally slammed the brakes on Trump and said, sorry, orange guy, we're not doing this for you. You have to learn to stay in your own lane and, stay in the White House, manage your federal shit, and let us manage our state shit. And I'm happy, because now we can't say that no Republican is actually standing up to Trump. During the first administration, even though Bill Barr saved them a lot, Bill Barr, at the end of the day, when it came to the stolen election thing, he said, I'm not going to put up with that. There's no proof, there's no evidence of any election fraud, so I'd rather quit your administration than to help you, seize machines or keep pushing this lie, because this is just makes no sense. He left. We saw it with Mike Pence. It was at the last minute, but he did the right thing and he saved the country. Thank you, Mike Pence, for growing a little spine at the last minute, at least when it mattered. And, we saw it with some other people in the FBI. He wanted some people. He wanted this guy named Rosenstein. He wanted this guy who was, I think he was acting deputy director or something like that at that time. And Donald Trump told him, I just need you to tell the country that you found fraud. And they were, pushing back, say like, we just can't do that. He's like, yes, you can do it. Just say it and leave the rest to Congress and to me, to the Republicans in Congress and to me. So even though there was no proof, because the FBI said there was no proof, the DOJ said there was no proof, CISA said there was no proof, DHS said there was no proof, White House counsel said there was no proof, even I believe that some RNC lawyers or whatever, they also said there was no proof. Everybody told Donald Trump he lost, but he was still trying to push the narrative. That's why they filed 62 cases all over the country. Not a single case that they filed made it to trial. Not a single one. Even they were even dismissed or even taken away taken back by the own Trump's lawyers. They filed them and then they even canceled their own cases. They just took them back. I don't know how you say it. They retired the cases themselves before a judge even like dismissed them. But once they did that, they knew they already had, the optics. We have 62 cases. This is, widespread fraud. Not a single shred of evidence. Everything was just struck down in the courts. Everything was proven to be manipulated, doctor videos, lies. Rudy Giuliani pled guilty. He pled guilty in Georgia, not in the RICO case. There was a separate case for defamation. Remember these two ladies, Ruby Freeman and I forget the other name right now. Ruby Freeman and something. Anyway, two ladies, two volunteer election workers. He defamed them like so badly that these ladies were persecuted, they were doxxed, they were threatened. They had to move from Georgia. They moved to a different state. They would still find them and then again dox them again and then again put their information online so that people would start harassing them again. So these ladies like really suffered badly. And even their lives were, at risk. And then Rudy Giuliani said in court, yeah, I'm sorry, Judge, I can't produce the evidence to back my claims about them. He had to admit that's why he lost that defamation suit, and he had to pay these ladies, well, at least he was fined $150 million. The jury found that they were subject to such, scrutiny and abuse and violence and trauma that they awarded these two ladies $150 million. Eventually, Rudy, he was delaying a lot, and they ended up making some arrangement outside of the court, and it was sealed, so we never know exactly how much he ended up paying. But I'm pretty sure that at least maybe half or maybe 40%, maybe he told him, hey, I can't come up with $150 million. If you keep going for that, we're gonna be in the courts probably for the next 2, 3, 4 years. He wanted to end that himself. He was miserable, Rudy. So probably he said, hey, I can come up with 40. I can come up with 20, 30 millions. That was still, a very decent amount for these ladies. And maybe that's what they did. But you can see how Rudy had to accept. He had to admit that after like really, just abusing these people and defaming them so badly, he had no proof. Surprise, surprise, no proof. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. That's all for now. I believe Kristi Noem may need urgently a lawyer. If not a lawyer, then she needs probably a Trump pardon. Because remember, the wheel is going to keep spinning, and you're on top right now, but eventually it's going to go down. It's going to take you. You're going to go down, and you're going to face accountability. Somebody was saying the Supreme Court is never going to allow, Trump's lackeys to face accountability. I'm in agreement with you. But remember, the fact that the Supreme Court may try to do that doesn't mean that in all cases they will or may protect them. Or remember that it's unlikely, but if Democrats win and they have enough people to have like a supermajority in both chambers at some point, that means that they may be able to come up with different things to deal with that. I even believe that at some point the Supreme Court may be expanded. We'll see what happens. There's many things that may be addressed, but the thing is that the same way, look at how Trump is doing it right now. He doesn't have proof for anything. This is why cases are being dismissed, or just because they're mismanaging. It totally looks, vindictive. It looks like, they're weaponizing the FBI and the DOJ right now with James Comey, with Letitia James, with John Bolton, with Adam Schiff. Kash Patel came into the FBI with a book, with a whole appendix of names. Pam Bondi said before she came in, she took office, she said the prosecutors will be prosecuted. How do you think a jury final is going to take that once, people are just trying to be fair and balanced and do, their patriotic real duty, which is just, to follow the law. Once they start seeing, Donald Trump's own posts on Truth Social saying, Pam Bondi, I need you to go after these people right now. They indicted me 5 times. They impeached me twice. These people are criminals. And I'm telling you, and that guy that didn't want to indict him, that Republican rhino, Eric Siebert, the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who initially was appointed by Trump to investigate James Comey and Letitia James, and he declined indicting them. And Donald Trump got so mad that he fired him. He told Pam Bondi, we need to fire this guy. And the guy said, well, I quit. And then Donald Trump said to the media, he said, well, he didn't quit. I fired him. Regardless, it doesn't matter. Donald Trump literally fired this guy because the guy told him, a career Republican who was respected both by Republicans and Democrats. This guy had such a great record that Donald Trump decided to appoint him as a U.S. attorney. So then all of a sudden you're going to say he's a bad candidate, that he's a traitor, that he's a rhino. So if he was, why did you name him in the first place? Why did Pam Bondi name him in the first place? That doesn't speak badly of him. You are the commander-in-chief. Are you choosing people just like that, willy-nilly? Just because somebody, I guess the same way he's granting pardons, right? Oh, well, a lot of people told me he was a great guy. They didn't know he was, financing terrorism and human trafficking and child sexual exploitation and drugs, but a lot of people told me he was good. Yeah, I guess that's the same way he goes about naming people to be interim U.S. attorneys for 120 days because he knows they're not going to get a confirmation from the Senate. So anyway, when people look at all the way these cases are being brought, how they are being pursued and how they develop and how now you have, when it comes to Letitia James, you even have Fannie Mae that conducted a completely independent investigation. And Fannie Mae said that their investigation yielded 0 fraud. So now you have an illegal attorney who came after the first U.S. attorney who declined to indict him because there was no proof. And now Trump brings his own personal lawyer, Lindsey Halligan. He names her illegally because you don't get, as a president, you don't get to fill the same vacant position with 2 different people. You have 120 days. If you don't get them confirmed by the Senate, tough luck. Now it's jurisdiction of the district court. Now the district court gets to a point after 120 days. They can extend the original person that you named, which they did. They extended Eric Siebert, which Trump then fired. And now Trump thought that just because he fired the guy after the 120 days had expired, and after the district court had extended Eric Siebert, that he could just name a substitute. Because, he wants to always game the system and he thinks he can get away with everything. Because if not, I'll take you up to the Supreme Court and, I have my 6 friends, and out of those 6 friends, I named 3 of them. But anyway, finally, then the courts look at this and say, well, you name your personal lawyer who has 0 criminal experience. She's an insurance lawyer. And now in 3 days, she found a way to indict both people that the other guy in 4 months decided he didn't want to indict. Like, she came in and in 3 days, she was able to review the whole body of evidence and to conduct her own personal investigation. Of course, everything looks so freaking shady. And then they mismanaged the jury. There's 2 hours of transcript that are completely gone. Like, there's no record. They did address the jury for 2 hours. No record. Transcription is just not there. And then they also brought in an FBI agent that used evidence that was part of sealed and protected conversations between Comey and his lawyer. That's protected by attorney-client privilege, which you cannot pierce. You cannot go against that unless, that's only determined by the courts, unless there is a situation, which happened to Trump, in which you have a lawyer like Michael Cohen. So those deliberations will not be protected if you're confessing a crime or you're part of a conversation that may have to do with a crime. And now your lawyer is also involved in that crime, committing a second crime. Then that completely will drop the protection. That's why that protection was pierced. The professional secret, they call it, to the attorney-client privilege. It's not completely flawless, or it's not like how you call it, like bulletproof. If both parties involved, the lawyer and the client, are committing a crime together, and then the courts can actually go against that. But that's not the case with James Comey. So they were not supposed to use protected deliberations, conversations between Comey and his lawyer, and they brought that information and they showed it to the jury, which it's literally just damning to their case. And I'm telling you, there's just a whole list of errors and mistakes and just rookie mistakes, and it just shows. It shows that this is vindictive. It shows that it's a complete witch hunt. And Trump is always claiming witch hunt, but in his case, he's on audio. He's on record. They found thousands of classified documents, and unlike Biden and Mike Pence, Donald Trump didn't cooperate. Donald Trump didn't actually call to get these picked up. And he didn't sit down for an interview like Biden and Mike Pence did. These people call and say, hey, come to my house. We found documents. Please take them. And we're fully cooperating to the point where a Republican prosecutor, this guy, what was his name? Robert Hur, I think it was the Republican that they named. They found one of the toughest and longest, Republicans to actually go after Biden's classified documents investigation. And even though he said, hey, there's no point here because he's already old enough that he may just convince the jury, the defense may convince the jury that he wasn't in his, in his mind, that he's just like old and he just forgot some stuff. But he also said, honestly, there's no crime. This guy cooperated fully and we couldn't find enough information to say that there was the intention to commit a crime. And he also sat down and openly answered all of my questions. You can go and read his report. He is very clear that, of course, there were some things that were probably improper and that could, be kind of like borderline with maybe responsible or maybe even at some point committing a crime. But remember, the law is always about intention. And they just couldn't find enough evidence to pursue a jury, to convince a jury beyond reasonable doubt that Biden had the intention. Donald Trump's case, he was saying, yeah, I declassified. First, it was a hoax. First, he didn't have it. First, there was nothing. He even had one of his lawyers. Donald Trump had one of his lawyers, I think it was Christina Bobb, signing a document and sending this letter to the DOJ and to the FBI and to NARA saying like, hey, this is a certified letter. And we are telling you that there are no additional documents, classified documents in Mar-a-Lago. They sent, once the FBI and the DOJ got involved, they gave the DOJ and the authorities, they gave them like 11, 12, maybe 13 boxes. That's what they did. And I think it was in the beginning of maybe January 2024 when this happened or so, or maybe 2023, I don't even remember, one of these 2 years. Whenever it happened, it was early in the year. January or February, they gave the authorities like 12 boxes. That's it. That's all we have. And they signed that letter. That Trump's lawyers signed the letter saying, certified, 100% confirmed, we have nothing else. And those 12 boxes wasn't even not even 2% of all the things that Donald Trump had. So that's why Bill Barr, I have Bill Barr also, I have like many clips of him that I use on my Spanish podcast. Bill Barr saying, he jerked them around. He would, there's no way that the presidential records, act entitles Donald Trump to keep battle plans and, highly sensitive, classified information. The only thing that he can take is actually his notes, handwritten notes. And even those have to be also checked and vetted to make sure that there's nothing in those notes that may have compromising information, which happened to both Mike Pence and Biden. They had notes and they told them some of those notes contain, some sensitive information that was considered still classified. So I'm telling you, it's always been a disaster. But the courts are not, you just can't fool the courts, and especially the jury. Jury, once they start looking at all these things, if they ever get Letitia James reindicted, because now a second grand jury just voted against reindicting Letitia James. After the case got dismissed, which was a failure, the first failure, they went to a grand jury to reindict her. First grand jury said, no, you have no evidence. Second grand jury, literally 2-3 days ago, said, we're not reindicting Letitia James. So that's 3 strikes in a row, guys. It's a strikeout. 3 strikes in a row. Are they going to go for, now at this point, a third grand jury to try to re-indict her? They're doing the same shit they did with Sandwich Guy. Remember the Sandwich Guy that he slammed a sandwich on the police officer's, I don't know, ICE officer chest. He just slammed the sandwich, and they wanted to charge that guy criminally. I'm not supportive of that, but still. The jury eventually, they went over like 3 different juries to get him indicted, and they couldn't. They finally had to file some like civil charges that were not criminal, that didn't need the grand jury. And even then, after they did that, still the jury in the civil case found them not guilty. So that was a total failure. In that case, it was Pam Bondi through, what's the name of Janine, the judge from Fox News, Janine Pirro. So I'm telling you, they're losing 96% of their cases. It's something Glenn Kirshner says a lot with Brian Tyler Cohen on his show, that the Justice Department normally would win anywhere from 97 to 98% of the cases. They would win because they wouldn't take a case unless they knew 100% they were going to win. Apparently, there was this thing about, I don't know, the image, the branding of the office, which was a good thing in a way because they were really sure that they were going to win. But Glenn Kirshner, ex-federal prosecutor, 30 years of experience, he says the downside to that was that because they were so obsessed with winning, sometimes they would just not pursue cases that were, really good cases and that had merit, that people were suffering, things that would benefit the country, but they just didn't want to take those cases because they rather not lose than to try to defend, than trying to defend the people at some point. But with Pam Bondi and Donald Trump is the whole opposite. They don't care about winning. They care about just indicting people and just giving the optics. And at the same time, the moment I say I'm indicting you, I'm investigating you, now I can go after you. I can get all your documents. Once I get into your computers and your documents, I can try to find if there's additional, crimes that I can try to charge you for. Even though normally these investigations have supposedly a scope and everything, but once they get into your life, they make you suffer. So that's the whole thing right now. This is just revenge. Donald Trump is going for revenge. And then look at that. From winning 98% before Pam Bondi, the DOJ, now they're losing literally at least 96%. Would you hire a lawyer that loses, 9 out of every 10 cases? That's Pam Bondi right now. They are losing almost 9 point something out of every 10 cases, which is absolutely, just ridiculous. Leave me a comment. There's a bunch of comments here right now, 104 comments. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them. But anyway, thank you for all you guys connecting. Thank you for all the people that initially told me there was a problem with the audio. Unfortunately, it's really sad because I don't hear it. This is a weird thing. I use this really nice gear. It's from the brand Rode. It's called a Streamer X. It's a very, very good small interface. It works flawlessly. I hear my audio coming out of my computer perfectly. But somehow the streaming to YouTube gets corrupted somehow. And then there's like distortion or some noise. I never hear it unless, some people tell me in the chat. And sometimes, I'm not looking at the chat screen because I'm just trying to follow the show. So anyway, thank you for those of you who alerted me. Because all I have to do is restart it. But the sad part is that customer service for this brand, which is Rode, which is this is one of the top brands in audio, professional audio right now. They do all sorts of things, like interfaces and microphones and a bunch of accessories and stuff. They haven't been able to find the problem. I've been dealing with this problem. It happens like once every couple of weeks. I run into this problem with the noise. Maybe once every month and a half or 2 months. It doesn't happen always, but it happens from time to time. And I have open multiple tickets, they never find it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. Please let me know what you think. Do you think Kristi Noem will ever face accountability? Do you think Donald Trump is going to fire her? Do you really think she actually perjured herself? She committed perjury? Do you think she's lying? I believe that she has to be lying, because if not, that would also mean that she is absolutely 100% ridiculously incompetent. Like, there's no way that you can have people deporting veterans and then you claim before Congress under oath that you don't know. Well, she never say we don't know. It's worse. I think it's saying hey, not that I'm aware of, would have been a better answer, right? Because if they ask you, hey, why are you deporting people? Hey, not to my knowledge. I'm not sure about that. Let me look into that for you. Who you say? Oh, these 3 veterans. Hey, let me look into these cases. These cases have been all over the media anyway, so it's highly unlikely that she could claim something, that was something like that would fly. But I think that's less damaging than saying we haven't deported any veteran at all, because that's 100% demonstrably false. So I think, eventually, like one of the senators told Pam Bondi. Remember when Pam Bondi said, I'm not answering, what she said, I'm not telling you anything about that. I'm not sharing anything about that with you. This was the question. I'm not sure if it was White. Anyway, it was definitely one of the senators, Democrat senators, a month and a half ago or so. He asked Pam Bondi, can you tell me who ordered the FBI 1,000 agents to go and read and investigate all these Epstein documents? I don't know, maybe hundreds of thousands of documents, and redact Donald Trump's name. Who gave the order to have 1,000 agents reading all the Epstein documents and redacting Donald Trump's name? Who gave the order? She said, I'm not sharing any of that with you, she told the guy. He said, well, maybe not today. You may not share it today, but eventually you will. You will have to. And I'm like, yeah, that's a really good answer. Just let her know. Maybe not now. You can feel empowered all you want right now, but eventually there may come a day where you're going to have to face accountability. And even if they don't, guys, what they fail to see is that, yeah, you can get away with a corrupt government, that Pam Bondi's not going to take action against any of Trump's, directors or cabinet members. Right now, you have Judge Boasberg with this contempt of court criminal contempt investigation open, and they just gave him sworn declarations and everything. He may find some of them in contempt of court, and I think he will. I think this judge is really pissed because they have really fooled him and, jerked him around, and he's ready to, at least try to hold some of them accountable. But do you think, what's going to happen with that? Even if he were to find 2 or 3, Kristi Noem and, some of the lawyers and who knows who else, do you think once he gives that referral to who? To Pam Bondi, you think Pam Bondi is going to act on it? They already been mopping the floor with this guy's reputation, saying that he's a, partisan judge. He's a Marxist and activist judge. Do you think she's really going to take any action? Nothing is going to happen. At least for now. And then, they have to start praying that Donald Trump pardons them before anything happens. Because another thing that I've been thinking of is like, I'm pretty sure a lot of them are counting on pardons. The same way, remember when Donald Trump was about to leave office in 2020? Remember that once a lot of these emails came out because of January 6th and some other investigations, they found all this information of all the people that were asking for pardons because they knew they were exposed. And they were asking Donald Trump to please take care of them. So imagine that some of these people are completely empowered right now. They're feeling full of themselves. Yeah, I know Donald Trump is going to take care of me. And then tomorrow we wake up and, hey, Donald Trump just passed. He had a massive heart attack. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Probably then, maybe, of course, J.D. Vance takes over. J.D. Vance seems to be as corrupt, so I don't know if that's going to be worse or not, but who knows? Things may things may change at some point. And so all I'm saying is that I wouldn't just gamble like that. I wouldn't take that risk and put my life on Donald Trump's hands, because Donald Trump has proven time and time and again that once you're not useful to him anymore, once he can't benefit from you, Donald Trump will drop you, just like trash, just like that. He drops everybody once it's not convenient any longer. Donald Trump gets rid of everybody. He's not loyal to anyone, not even to his own family. But again, now I'm going to leave. Thank you so much for joining. Please like and subscribe. Hey, I have a Spanish channel. If you have any Spanish-speaking, members, family members, friends, coworkers, send them to Aranzamendi Podcast Español. It's called Aranzamendi Podcast Español. That's my main podcast. I just decided to start doing more content in English because I seldom do. But the last like 2 months, I started to do at least 2 or 3 episodes per week. And now I actually been even a little bit more active. So there's so much going on. I just want to contribute a little bit. And yeah, I know some people may not like it. Like I had an episode yesterday morning, man. It was just like, I don't know, I think it was 50 minutes. I ended up with like 46,000 views during the episode. And probably like 45,000 were MAGA Trump followers. They were so mad. I had thousands of comments, just insulting me and telling me I was a Marxist and I was, it's stupid. And I was just laughing. I was laughing my ass off, just reading some of the comments later on. Like, man, these people are just so sick and just so brainwashed and so on. But anyway, if you made it this far and you're here, please like and subscribe. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. I'm trying to reach more people. So it's just a very slow process with YouTube. But still, since I started posting more, and, I just doubled the followers. And now, all of a sudden from when you start out, you get 20 views, 30 views, 100 views. Then you start seeing 200, 300. Now I'm having, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 or so. And then yesterday's video was like 46,000, which was one of those viral explosions that you don't expect. But still, this is what happens when you start just sharing content consistently. YouTube starts finding out who is looking for the kind of content that you're sharing. And that may include MAGA sometimes, because they are so dumb that they want to come in here and like insult me and comment, and they think they're doing the greatest thing ever. What they fail to realize is that once you go into a channel and you start commenting, that counts as engagement. You're telling YouTube's algorithm, hey, this channel has something good going on because I'm posting 20 comments here. So there's something that more people should hear about. Bring them to this channel. So what they fail to realize is they're working for me. Whenever MAGA people come into my channel just to start debating and insulting me and all of that, that's why I leave the chat open. A lot of people, they close the chat. The live chat, they just close it. Maybe you can leave a comment, but not live. I'm not gonna allow you to like mess up my live chat. I don't give a shit. I have thick skin. You can call me whatever you want. They would tell me, well, why is this migrant? Bro, I'm Puerto Rican. I may have a thick accent and so on, but I'm Puerto Rican. Not only I'm Puerto Rican, I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and lived here. Before I went back to Puerto Rico, I lived here for like 4 years. So I'm not only Puerto Rican, which, we're automatically U.S. citizens since like 1913 or so, or 1915 or so. And not only that, then I was also born here in the mainland. So, kind of like in a dual way. My birth certificate is actually from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it's not even based on that. And my social number is a social granted here in the United States. So it's kind of like, a double, double protection there for you guys that are always hating on migrants as if you were natives. As last time I checked, you don't look very native to me. So I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about. But still, all those kinds of like hateful comments. Oh, you migrant, they should kick you out. Call eyes on this guy. I'm like, oh man, these people are so extra. So these alpha males, always so fragile, getting all upset because the great leader is being criticized. And yeah, that's totally unacceptable. But anyway, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying myself just sharing. This is what I do. I'm a content creator. I have journalism experience and marketing and advertising and a bunch of other stuff that I'm not gonna share right now. But I always enjoy combating misinformation. And boy, I thought Puerto Rico was bad. Puerto Rico was bad with misinformation until I got here, man. Especially with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump has created this new alternate facts, concepts. And he has, I think, we have a new normal. The new normal is that whatever Trump says, we're going to live by. That's what his party, MAGA world, lives by right now. And they don't care about proof. They don't care about science. They don't care about research. They don't care about nothing unless it's whatever Donald Trump is saying. And whatever he says, yeah, it has to be true because he says so. It's unfortunate, but anyway, I have more work to do, more things to do right now. I'll be back probably tonight. If not, maybe tomorrow early in the morning. Thank you for joining. Please subscribe, like, leave a comment, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode, okay? So thank you so much. Take care.